There are 6 FPL players that you must avoid going into game week 1, and some of these are quite highly owned. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly who those players are to avoid. So make sure you do drop a like on the video if you are enjoying it, and make sure you do smash that subscribe button. We're aiming for 6k before game week 1. I know you legends can do that. So without further ado, let's get into this first player. So it only feels right to kick off this video with the ultimate FPL troll of last season in Man City's Ederson, coming in at 5.5 million once again, obviously as a goalkeeper. And the reason why a lot of FPL managers like going for Ederson, and I understand it, is to get that guaranteed game time in Pep Guardiola's defence, because his defenders are very hard to predict their game time from time to time. Now, the reason why I am against Ederson is, first and foremost, we saw last season, Man City were quite susceptible to that lazy goal conceded once the game was wrapped up at 3-0. They started to ease off the blocks and the team started to get themselves back into the team. Those last-minute goals conceded, anyone who owns Ederson last season knows it was a frustrating experience. But it isn't even necessarily that. The fixtures to kick off the season are fantastic. And I do think having some sort of Man City investment in the defence is worthwhile. However, you can see on the graphic here, the average stats per 90 minutes. And I've compared this to someone like Alisson. Now, a caveat here, Alisson could also be in the conversation, but because of the price difference between Alisson at 5.5 and Trent Alexander-Arnold at 8, I do think there's some argument to suggest if you were going without Trent, that maybe having Alisson in goal is actually a viable argument. But we'll discuss that in a future video, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. But in regards to Ederson, the underlying stats here suggest that he isn't a good value goalkeeper. Points per 90, 3.46. This is last season. And again, remember, this is a 5.5 million goalkeeper. But importantly, bonus points per 90, 0.23. And clean sheets per 90, FPL clean sheets per 90, 0.31. And saves 1.34 per 90. So remember, in order to accumulate 1 save point, a goalkeeper needs to make 3 saves. And of course, we want to be seeing him racking up on the bonus points. But this is a goalkeeper who is top price, doesn't make saves, and isn't good on the bonus points. Therefore, I want no investment in that goalkeeper. Yes, he has fantastic fixtures, but at 5.5, I think there are so many better options at 5, like Ramsdale, or even 4.5, like a Pickford or a Leno, who, while might not be in a team that's going to keep more clean sheets, will rack up bonus points and save points. And that is really important when we are considering our goalkeepers. So for me, Ederson is off the table, especially when we have the likes of Akanji, Stones, Diaz at cheaper prices or same price, where we could also have potential attacking returns. So for me, Ederson is an absolute avoid in our teams. Next up, we have Arsenal's Ben White, which honestly was probably the surprise pricing that FPL done in this season. 5.5 million for Ben White when the rest of his teammates are 5 million defense is criminal from FPL headquarters. So of course Ben White was the highest scoring defender for Arsenal last season, but only about 10 points ahead of Gabriel and Saliba. And yes, I understand that he was a marauding right back that was actually getting a few assists from time to time in the team, but it really doesn't justify why he is 0.5 million more expensive than other assets in the team. Now, of course, he was pretty much never present in the Arsenal team last year. However, going into this season, I really think there are question marks about his game time. And if it isn't his game time, it's his positioning in the Arsenal team. The signing of Timber suggests that he is going to be getting game time off Ben White, or they're going to be looking to integrate the defence to have maybe Gabriel as left side of a back 3, Saliba in the middle, and Ben White through the right, with Timber inverting into the centre mid. And if that was to happen, that just makes Ben White even worse of an FPL option, because he'll effectively playing centre-back and not making those bombing right-back runs that we did see last season. And the main reason why Ben White is just completely off the table as an option is because Gabriel, Saliba, Zinchenko are 0.5 million cheaper and are arguably as good FPL options. Now you can see on your screen here, looking at the underlying numbers from last season compared to Gabriel, who's the second highest scoring Arsenal defender. Expected goals, miles in Gabriel's favour. Shots, obviously, in Gabriel's favour because he's such an influence from set pieces, Gabriel in particular. Much more of a goal threat than that of Ben White. And because the opening fixtures, in particular game weeks 1, game weeks 3, even game weeks 5 away against Everton, I think having some Arsenal investment in the defence is an okay move, whether you go for the 5 million option in Ramsdale or you go for the 5 million option in Gabriel or Saliba. But whatever investment you do make in the Arsenal defence, it cannot be Ben White. There is no indication that the attacking returns are justifiable of the additional 0.5 million. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But for me, Ben White is absolutely an avoid in our FPL teams. Sticking with the defenders, and we have Kieran Trippier, who could be quite a controversial one right now, as he's over 30% owned in the game at the time of recording. But I really think FPL have done him dirty a little bit with this 6.5 million price band. I think it's fair price, but when we compare it to the rest of the game, Luke Shaw at 5.5 million, the Chelsea boys, the Arsenal boys, all so much cheaper. And importantly, Sven Botman being 2 million cheaper than Trippier makes it so hard to justify the investment in Kieran Trippier. Now, yes, he nearly got to that magical 200 point score last season. I think he was 198. So there's no denying that he is a fantastic FPL option. And we can see that with the underlying numbers here in terms of the goal assist per 90, expected assist per 90. But again, this is a defender that doesn't offer much goal threat at all. 0.02 XG per 90, his shots 0.38 per 90. Botman is outscoring him in all of those goal threat departments. But of course, him being on set pieces makes him a really, really good FPL option. And importantly, his bonus point accumulation is ridiculous. One of the best we've ever seen in the game. So it is worth noting, if Newcastle keep a clean sheet, Trippier is usually guaranteed for a 9-point haul. So that is worth noting when we are looking to avoid him. But for me, I haven't built a draft with him in. It is so hard to justify him. And especially with these opening fixtures, not only do I think Trippier is an avoid, but all Newcastle defenders to kick off the season. Villa, Man City, Liverpool, Brighton is ridiculously hard. I don't see many clean sheets, if any, in those opening fixtures. And knowing that we might wildcard in game weeks 5, 6, 7, I think we can simply just avoid Newcastle defenders altogether and then look to invest them elsewhere after the wildcard when we can look to integrate them back into our teams. Kevin De Bruyne, probably one of my favourite Premier League players over the last few seasons, unfortunately is just an absolute avoid in FPL. He's coming at 10.5 million. He's rightly so had a price drop, but it isn't enough to justify putting him into our teams. First and foremost, he is an injury doubt for game week 1, and he might miss multiple games in the opening fixtures after that groin injury that he suffered in the Champions League final. It's worth noting the Man City fixtures are fantastic. Looking at them on your screens there, they have Burnley away, but then Sheffield United away, Fulham at home, Forest at home. You want a bit of investment in that Man City attack, but unfortunately, Kevin De Bruyne isn't going to be the route for points in our teams. His game time is very hard to predict going forward. He had a decent season for game time perspective last year, and his returns were actually okay. But him not getting any younger right now, very difficult to justify him being in our FPL teams at 10.5 million, and especially when we have someone who is at 7.5 million in the shape of Phil Foden. Now, at the time of recording, it looks like Mahrez might be leaving Man City and Kevin De Bruyne is injured. Therefore, step forward Mr. Phil Foden at 7.5. He has to start the season for this Man City team. There are too many injuries. There are too many absences for him not to. And looking at the stats you can see on your screen here, based on per 90 minutes last season, yes, I know Foden played less minutes. It's very difficult to judge Foden because he played in multiple roles as an 8 in the front three. But these numbers are fantastic and they blow Kevin De Bruyne out of the water from a goal threat perspective. 0.31 XG per 90. His actual goals at 0.53 per 90 were fantastic. And importantly as well, what I'd like to see is the shots in the box for Phil Foden. The reason why I really don't like Kevin De Bruyne is he, over the last few years, has really operated on the edge of the box, being the guy delivering the balls. He isn't making those late runs into the box, which Phil Foden was doing last season. And I want the investment in the goal scorer of the teams. And Phil Foden is absolutely that man. So unfortunately, De Bruyne remains an unbelievable player. He is unfortunately now not an FPL option in our teams. Right then, it's time for the big gun, Harry Kane. I cannot believe he has made this video being an FPL player that we need to avoid off the back of the season that he had. 30 goals, only a few points behind Erling Haaland, and at 12.5 million, 1.5 million cheaper than Erling Haaland, yet he is an absolute avoid in my eyes. Now, this one is a very different avoid. I think at 12.5 million, he is good value in isolation as an asset. I think he will absolutely return the goods at that price point. The problem is, Erling Haaland is just impossible to ignore at 14 million. I've got the underlying stats per 90 minutes on our screens here, and Harry Kane's is a joke. 0.55 XG per 90, his shots per 90 are ridiculously good, his actual output of 0.79 goals per 90 is so good, but then you look at Haaland's XG per 90, 0.94, his shots are ridiculous. Yes, Kane was slightly better from an expected assist and attempted assists, but not too much to justify anything why we should go for Kane over Haaland. And the reason why I think Kane is just a complete avoid is because it is so difficult to build a draft with both Erling Haaland and Harry Kane as your front two, and the 8 to 9 million midfielders in our draft, which are all but essential because of the pricing that FPL have done. So it isn't a case of I hate Harry Kane, don't make that agenda up please. But I just think because Erling Haaland is all but essential, his 85% ownership means that if you go without, you really are taking a massive risk. I would really want to see somebody in the comments let me know what a Haaland and Kane draft looks like. I haven't been able to build one that actually looks solid. So for me, the fixtures are quite good. Game weeks 3 to game weeks 5 in particular, I would love a piece of Harry Kane over that period. But for me, looking at the likes of Maddison at 7.5, Son at 9 million, even a Kulusevski at 7, unfortunately, I think Kane is just impossible to fit into our drafts. And I think going for the midfield option in this Spurs team of a Maddison, of a Son, is going to be a better use of your money than going for the top price of Harry Kane at 12.5. But of course, if we do get an injury for Haaland, then we are all going to be moving to both Alvarez of Man City and Harry Kane of Spurs. But for now, he is a complete avoid in our teams, even though nearly 20% of FPL managers have him in their teams. And last up of the 6 FPL players you need to avoid is Liverpool's Gakpo, coming in as a 7.5 million forward. He's got that positional change after we saw him play pretty much the whole time in a Liverpool shirt as a false 9. Now, the fixtures to start off with Liverpool are quite mixed. Tricky away game against Chelsea under a new manager, which is going to be a trickier game than what it once was. Game week 2, we're all going to want a little bit of a piece of the pie in that Liverpool team. But then they have some tricky fixtures afterwards with Newcastle and Villa in game weeks 3 and 4. So I don't think starting the season with a Liverpool forward is really essential, especially with game weeks 1 and 3. However, the reason why I really don't like Gakpo as an option is I think it is going to be the season for Darwin Núñez to break out. Yes, I know you're probably laughing behind the screen there, but I do think Darwin Núñez is going to have his time in the sun this season. And I think the way that they're building the team with these ball providers like Sabitzer, whatever his name is, Trent playing in that inverted role, I think they're going to want that direct running of Darwin Núñez in behind their defences. And Darwin Núñez is just the man for that game. You can see that with the stats here. XG per 90, shots per 90, shots in the box. Everything goes in Darwin Núñez's favour. Now, I do not doubt that Gakpo is going to get game time. Absolutely. He has a role in that team. He's a good player. He is very much in that Firmino-esque in a way, / Dele Alli. But I just think they're going to want that raw pace, that raw athleticism from Darwin Núñez this season to kick it off. Therefore, I think Gakpo is just a very hard pass in our FPL teams. I think his game time is going to be very managed. He'll either start and play 60 or he'll come on and play 30. And that really isn't an FPL option that we want to consider in our teams. So Gakpo is a player that we need to avoid in our teams. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I just can't see this one. Before we wrap up the video, I thought it would be a nice little touch just to have a starting 11 of players that I think we need to avoid. Now, there's 6 that I touched on already in this team, but a few other notables. Reece James, I love this guy. Absolutely love him, but such an injury risk. I think with the first fixture they have against Liverpool, it's a perfect opportunity to almost just watch that game and see if Reece James is actually the player that he once was. I can't take that risk early doors on him, but ahead of game week 3, the fixtures are fantastic for Chelsea. That might be the time to then move into those assets inevitably. Trippier and White, as I discussed. McAllister at Liverpool. I haven't got a vendetta against Liverpool, but I think McAllister is a player that we need to avoid. At 6 million, I doubt he'll be on penalties of Mo Salah in the team. I would need to see a lot from him to justify putting him into our teams and basically using one of those Liverpool spots on him. Havertz, I am a Chelsea fan, so I'm a little bit bitter about this one, but also glad to see the back of him. 7.5 million. I think Arsenal are going to struggle to deploy a Rice, Odegaard, Havertz midfield 3 in certain games. So I think Havertz's game time is going to be a little bit mixed at the start. Therefore, like Reece James, I need to monitor Havertz, see if he is actually going to be an FPL option. If we see the Bayern Leverkusen Havertz, then it's a completely different ball game. But until we see that player emerge, I think Havertz is a complete void in our FPL teams. And the same goes for Diego Jota. The same as what I said about Gakpo. I do not know who's going to start in that Liverpool front three. I think it will be Darwin Núñez down the middle, Diaz off the left, and Mo Salah off the right. Therefore, the likes of Gakpo, the likes of Jota, minutes are going to be very hard to predict. And at 8 million, you simply cannot justify Diego Jota when we have someone like a Martinelli at Arsenal at the exact same price. We got Maddison at 7.5, Foden at 7.5. Diego Jota is a complete void in our teams. I've touched on Kane, I've touched on Gakpo, and I think, unfortunately, Ferguson at Brighton right now is in a void. However, this is the one I want to caveat where I would say, although he is in a void, this one could easily become an essential if we were to see maybe an injury to a Welbeck. I think Ferguson's game time is still going to be a little bit rotated, but if he was to stay as an absolute guarantee starter in that Brighton team, I saw enough last year to know that this guy knows where the net is, and he could very easily become an essential, but for now, because of the game time worries, he is going to be in a void. Okay guys, that's going to wrap up today's video. I really hope that you did enjoy it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments if there are some of the players that I mentioned are a little controversial. I think there could be a few out there, and also let me know in the comments which players do you think are FPL voids going into game week 1. That just leaves me to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you can drop a like, it would be fantastic, and also if you can smash that subscribe button, it'd be amazing to have you join the journey this season. Thank you once again. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.